Okay, here is the third paper and the final paper that I'm going to do a screen recording of. So let me go ahead and turn on my track changes so you can see all the changes I make. Okay, so category 1, thinking and problem solving, understanding your audience, humble, well-developed social skills, flexibility. All right, so this list is not parallel. If you haven't watched the other videos, then understand that parallel format is when items in a sentence items in a list are all in the same grammatical format. So that's items in a bulleted list, and a numbered list, or even items in a list in a sentence. So understanding your audience doesn't describe this person, and it starts with an ing verb, and then we have humble, which is an adjective, and then we have well-developed social skills. Skills would be a noun, and then flexibility is also a noun. So that list is not in the same grammatical format. So they either need to all be adjectives, all be nouns, or all start with an ing verb phrase. So, gosh, I'm trying to think of how I could even fix this real quick because they're so different. But let me read down below and maybe that'll give me an idea. All right, I like to think I'm a pretty good problem solver. In my current role at work, I am literally a problem solver. Okay, that's a little redundant. I get emails indicating there is a problem with an item that was ordered, and my job is to figure out why. I must understand my audience to get to the root of the problem. If I am talking to a warehouse worker compared to a military officer, I need to adjust my speech. Okay, so that wording is confusing. I know what this person's trying to say. So if I'm talking to a warehouse worker compared to a military officer, so this person's saying, like, if he's talking to a warehouse worker, he has to talk one way. If he's talking to a military officer, he has to talk another way. So he has to adjust his speech. But it's worded like if I'm talking to, the worker is compared to a military officer. So I will off-screen reword that when I have more time, but just for time's sake, I'll keep going. When I receive these emails with problems, sometimes fellow employees can be quick to place the blame on other employees. This is where being humble comes into play. Whatever the issue may be, who caused it is of no concern to me. All I care about is fixing the issue. Being humble allows me to stay focused and on task. Like I said earlier, being able to socialize with my fellow employees is a paramount skill to have in my line of work. Did you mention that? Because you said, like I said earlier, being able to socialize with my fellow employees. I don't see where he talks about socializing. So I'm just going to put, like I said earlier, I don't see where you mention being able to socialize. Okay. Ultimately, being flexible is a huge part of my job. Sometimes I will be working on a problem and an email will hit my inbox with hot, hot, hot. And I have to drop whatever I'm doing and shift focus. Okay, we're just going to move this comma here. Punctuation actually looks really good. All right, so now that I've read this a little bit more, we can kind of go up here. So let's change, we could change this to understanding, or understands. Maybe something like, we could put like, stays focused, or I'm trying to think, something just looking down here. So it was like stays focused on the task by being humble. What was the other thing? So well-developed social skills. So being able to socialize with my fellow employees is paramount skill. Ultimately, being flexible. So I didn't really develop that, but I think maybe what the reference here, well-developed social skills, was like being able to discern, like being able to discern what kind of speech to use and when. So You know, we could say, I don't know, maybe it reads social cues and adjust speech appropriately, something like that. And then flexibility, let's see. And then we could put adapts to constant changes and shifts focus easily, something like that. So anyway, so now each of these starts with a present tense verb, understands, stays, reads, adapts. So, all right. Nonverbal communication, artfully disagreeing with superiors, receiving constructive criticism, composing emails. So this one is a little bit more parallel, but we have nonverbal communication. So these are like disagreeing, receiving, composing. So maybe we could say, you know, accurately using to make this list parallel. And let's lowercase that. And this, yeah, emails. Okay. So now it is no secret that there is more to communication than just speaking. Everything you do non-verbally plays a part as well. For example, when I interviewed for my job, I put on a nice suit, I stood up straight, I gave a firm handshake, and I smiled. All those actions played a role. Also, in my role, sometimes I must disagree with my bosses. There is a right way and a wrong way to do this. I like to choose the most professional choice. That's a little redundant. I would like to choose the most professional choice. Also in my role, a little repetitive here. So first of all, let me go back. All those actions played a role. Just make this clear in my non-verbal communication. And you can say to the potential employer or to the interviewer. Also in my role, so it almost sounds like you're talking about in the same role, but this was a different role. This was like an interviewee role, right? So let's kind of transition a little bit better. So in my current role as a, you know, whatever, sometimes I must disagree with my bosses. There is a right and wrong way to do this. I like to choose the most professional choice. I don't know what that means. So what do you mean by this? Also in my role, so see, it's like it was like also my role. So let's try to change up the sentence structure here. Sometimes I must receive negative feedback. Okay. So let's say here, change the start of this sentence, transition more smoothly to this next point. Okay. Sometimes I must receive negative feedback. Being able to listen and detect the key points, delete that, is a very important skill to possess. So this is actually the subject. Being able to listen and detect the key points is the subject. So we don't need a subject between, or we don't need a comma between the subject and the verb. Right. Composing business emails is different than personal emails. Being able to properly construct an email was a new skill I had to learn. Okay, we need a transition to this. You need a clear, strong transition, to this idea. Okay. All right, because you went from being able to listen and detect the points and receiving negative feedback to composing business emails is different than personal emails. So that's like going from A to C, and there's no B in there connecting it. So as a reader, it just seems like a complete shift, and it's confusing. All right, feedback. That's a thing, not an attribute. Diversity. So let's just, these are things, not personal attributes. So these aren't really characteristics. Feedback's not a characteristic. I mean, you could be talking about, like, you know, receiving feedback or giving feedback. ethics, so diversity, you know, maybe instead of saying diversity, working with people from diverse backgrounds, something like that. But, you know, applying a code of ethics, thinking outside of the box, I don't know. So those are some ideas, and I'll just kind of put those here like, well, let's see what this person says on here. Working in teams is a vital part of my job. I have several people whom I rely on to help me to my job. And really we can just change this. I rely on several people to do, well, I'll add to help. We'll add back the help me, because otherwise it sounds like they're going to do your job. I rely on several people to help me do my job, and let's add a comma, comma here, and I help them do their job. There are times when we have to there are times when we have to leave feedback for each other to help us improve. So there are times when, sometimes, so just more concise, sometimes we have to leave feedback for each other to help us improve. Leaving clear, concise, clear, comma, because clear is not describing the concise feedback, it's clear and concise, and so we put a comma there instead. So clear, concise feedback allows the whole team to improve. When it comes to working in teams, comma, it takes an ethical person to get the most out of a team. For example, an unethical person could put their friend in charge of a team when they are the least, when the friend is, and I only did that because you could be, the day could have been the person, the unethical person, or it could have been the friend. So just to clarify, when the friend is the least qualified, or when their friend, okay. New ways of thinking allow a team to see more ideas and open the team up to new ways of thinking. New ways of thinking allow a team to see more ideas. Okay, so that's fine. New ways of thinking open the team up to new ways of thinking. So this part is confusing. This part doesn't work. New ways of thinking open, oh my gosh, if I could type, open the team up to new ways of thinking. Okay. This goes hand in hand with diversity. The more people you have on your team with different backgrounds, we'll say the more the group, there we go, learns, okay. The more people you have on your team with different backgrounds, the more the group learns to think differently. All right, so okay. So this needs a transition here, this sentence, because we go from like unethical, which is, and up until then we had a lot of good transitions. So we're talking about like helping people do their jobs, and you have to leave feedback with each other. And then when it comes to working in teams, so it's like all tied together. But then we get here, new ways of thinking, and needs a smooth transition. And there's no transition from being ethical. Okay. This goes hand in hand with diversity, that's a great, so there's a good transition there, but this needs a transition. And I'll just say from the previous idea or thought. Okay. Good listener, okay, that is an attribute, integrity. Okay, this is not a personal attribute. It's a thing. Okay. Compassionate, kind, okay. So in order to be a good team player, you must know how to actively listen. I am very good at listening and picking out the important parts and using it to the team's advantage. And picking out the important parts of what? So, of a conversation, of instructions, so finish that statement. and using it to the team's advantage. I have a ton of integrity. Okay, so we need a transition here. Needs a transition because we were just talking about being a good listener and using it to the team's advantage. I have ton of integrity. To be a good employee, must be able to be counted on. If my bosses didn't think I would tell them the truth, I would be out of a job. Being compassionate is another quality, so that's good. So the another part is a good transition, quality I possess. I get along well with everyone, and everyone gets along well with me. Let's add a comma. So conjunctions join words, phrases, clauses. That sound like a familiar statement? It's from Schoolhouse Rock, but anyway. But conjunctions also join two complete sentences, and when those conjunctions are joining those complete sentences, you need a comma. So being kind is a quality that everyone should possess. It's an quality, so this needs to be, okay, needs a transition and needs developed more because it needs to be connected to the person writing it. So it just kind of left hanging there. Cool, it's a quality everyone should possess, but what about it? And how are you showing that you possess that? So anyway, there you have it, short and sweet. I'm gonna go make some really quick wording changes up here off camera so I can cut this short.